It's Friday night. How cool is this? I mean, what kind of this is amazing, this environment. And I remember coming to my first weekend like this. Like Derek mentioned, we were 22 and 23 when we first saw this business. I was finishing up college. I literally had a couple months left, and I found myself in a Coliseum just like this many, many years ago. And, maybe you're in here and you're in all different phases of life, or, maybe you're in all different even excitement levels of the business. I mean, Derek came to a weekend like this his first time, and he was fired up. He was so excited about learning about entrepreneurship, business ownership. He walked into a weekend like this and was like, this is my people. I have arrived. I showed up at a weekend like this because, honestly, I thought Derek was cute. And we were dating, and I didn't want him going to anything without me, to be honest. I saw the business plan. It made sense. Was I fired up from day one? Not really. I was like, okay, this makes sense. It's logical. Maybe I can make a couple $100. And Derek was like, I'm going to that conference that they talked about. And I'm like, I don't know if I really want to go. He's like, well, I'm going. I'm like, well, you're not going without me. And that's how I found myself in a weekend like this. I walked in, and honestly, I was a little overwhelmed. I had never been in a building with this many people, and honestly, this many excited people. And I just remember sitting way up in the bleachers, just with my arms crossed, just thinking, you know what, I'm gonna see how this thing goes. I wasn't the person yelling. I didn't want to clap or stand. So if that's you, I understand. And I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna check these people out. I'm going to check this business out, and I'm going to see how things go. And that's how I was, and so maybe you're here and you're fired up, and maybe you're here just, trying to see if this business is really something that you can pursue at the highest level. Regardless of where you're at right now, I think you're really going to get what you need to this weekend to really commit to this team at a higher level. Because even though I walked in with a lot of walls built up, a ton of skepticism, honestly, a lot of judgment, I left this weekend being excited, and just seeing possibilities and just being hopeful that if I partnered up with this team, I could accomplish some different goals that I had. And I'm not saying leaving this weekend, everything was perfect, and I walked out of this weekend and I was like, okay, I'm super confident. I know exactly what I'm doing. That wasn't necessarily the case. I still had a lot of fear and doubt. I still had a lot of skill sets to learn. And honestly, I still had a lot of fear of what other people think, and are my friends and family going to think this is a good idea, or, are people going to support me? I still had a lot of those fears and a lot of those concerns. But what I realized, and hopefully you realize that after this weekend, is that partnering up with this team, and really latching onto what this team stands for, and like I said, you're going to see a lot of that all weekend, gave me the confidence to move forward and slowly but surely overcoming some of those fears. And so I really encourage you, it's okay if not everybody thinks what you think is a good idea. And that's one of the biggest things I got out of leaving a weekend like this was, it's okay if all my friends, all my family, are some of them going to support me? Absolutely. But if not every single person is excited about what I'm excited about, I'm a smart person. I saw what I saw. And this weekend really gave me the confidence to stand on my own 2 feet.
Yeah, and I came from a little bit different background. One of the things as I was getting started that was kind of going for me, I had no business experience. I had played some high-level sports. I was training with the Chicago Fire Pro soccer team right as I was getting started and kind of stepping out of that. And one of the things that I did learn in sports that did help me here was really just learning to believe in yourself. And in order to believe in yourself, you first have to figure out what you want. And in soccer, I grew up when I was little, and you start watching, the pro players, and you start emulating them, and you're in the backyard, and you're scoring goals, and you're tearing your shirt off, and, running into the corner flag, and nobody's there, but you kind of emulate them. And then, you go back and you practice some more, and you work at that stuff, and you emulate those heroes. And so I went through soccer, I went through the college and pro ranks and all that stuff, but it was because I knew what I wanted. And so tonight, as you're getting started in your business, or if you've been around a little bit, it's important to take a second and really think about what brought you here. What are you trying to accomplish? What does the business do for you? What are some of those goals like Joe was just talking about? Early on, it was like, man, another $1,000 changes the game. I used to be at work and we would get together at the beginning of the year and we would circle the months where we got 3 paychecks. Okay, don't raise your hand if you did that, but we've all been there, right? And so we would circle those months because we had a little breathing room. And so when I got into business, I think, man, $1,000 would make a difference. Or maybe starting to supplement my income to the point if something went crazy in the world, I'd be in a good spot. So whatever you're trying to accomplish with your business, you gotta know that. And you might not have it crystal clear this weekend, but one of the things I learned playing sports is that vague dreams get vague efforts. Vague dreams get vague efforts. If you don't start to define what you want a little more, you don't start to figure out what you want a little bit more, you don't start to draw in some of that picture for yourself, it's gonna be really hard to go after the things you want. And so as I was playing sports, one of the things that kept me on the straight and narrow was knowing that. In fact, I remember as I started going through the ranks, and I'll never forget my high school coach calls me up and we have a little chat, and he was a great guy, a really nice guy, not a great soccer coach, but a really nice guy. And we're high school coach, and in high school and soccer, it's more about like playing in front of your friends and having a good time. It's not really like the highest level of the sport. But it was kind of fun because all your friends come, and I remember I was coming in my freshman year, and I'm like, man, I'm making varsity. All my friends are telling me there's no way you can't make varsity as a freshman, like nobody ever does. And so I ended up playing on all the tournaments that year with the varsity, and I was like, told you. And then I started playing with the varsity, right? I remember my coach calling me up, and he brought me in one time, and he said, look, I know you're starting to look at colleges. I know this is a big year. He said, good for you. He said, but listen, I don't think you're gonna play Division I. I don't think you're big enough or fast enough. I don't think you have the right skills or the accolades. And I remember the conversation very vividly because while he was a great person, I immediately stopped listening to him. Immediately, because he no longer believed in what I was trying to accomplish. I still was picturing that little kid playing soccer and making it big. I was the guy sitting in class and the teacher's like, what are you doing? I was, I was practicing my signature. I was working on shoe designs for my first shoe deal, right? Now, it didn't quite happen, all right? But it was the vision at the time. And I remember that coach looking at me and saying, you're not gonna make it, maybe more than Division III. And I remember thinking, one, I'm done listening to you about like where I'm going. You're my coach, I'll be respectful. You're a nice guy. But I'm not gonna listen to you about how to get where I wanna get because you don't have the same vision for where I'm going. And then I remember after I went Division I started playing Division I, and I remember my dad. He had always supported me. I mean, he couldn't, you always say you can tell about a person what they believe in based on where they put their time and where they put their money. My parents were teachers, man. I don't know how they afforded my sports. I got mad respect for that. But I remember him sitting me down and he said, listen, you got a college scholarship, like that's been huge. We appreciate you doing that and continuing to play the sport and getting a little bit of a return on our investment here. But he said, listen, if you don't make it pro, it's okay. And this is my dad, right? I love him. We still have a great relationship. But I remember him just saying that probably as that fatherly advice of like, I just don't want you to get your hopes up. I just don't want you to get too excited just in case it doesn't work out. But I remember in that moment, I realized like, I can't spend too much time around him because he doesn't believe I can do it either. And so I just had to guard the people I allowed to have a voice in my life. And when I got into business, you know what? People say, man, how do you stay focused? Sometimes you're kind of battling that voice in your head, or maybe sometimes there's somebody that tells you can't do it. I remember when we were dating, and this is always fun, you're trying to impress your potential future mother-in-law. And she says, all right, well, listen, we're excited about having you at Thanksgiving, but don't you talk, sorry, that's my mom voice.
Yeah, why do you got to do that?
Does
Just
anybody
talk
have
regular.
Does anybody have like the mom voice? I'm sorry, there's no disrespect to the moms. It's always
rude.
nagging, you know what I mean? Like it's always got that like nagging
rude.
tone, which is like, I love my mom again, but like, and I love Jill's mom. She's very supportive now. But at the time, I remember her kind of pulling us aside and she's like, listen, I did this other business, kind of like what you're doing. Just don't talk to the whole family and badger them about products and stuff. And I'll be honest, everything I wanted to do was like say a prayer and ask them all to buy something at the Thanksgiving dinner. Like everything in me wanted to prove it wrong, but I was respectful. And later on though, as we built the business, she became like our #1 fan. You would have thought she built the business. If you ever meet her, she's like, she's more excited about who we are than we are. Okay, she's that kind of person. But she was a little bit hesitant about getting behind us. My parents were a little bit hesitant about getting behind us. It was just different. My parents were from that traditional route of go to school, get a good job. Nothing wrong with that at all. But I just saw a little bit more here. I saw something like Joe said at a weekend like this, that man, the heartbeat was different. This thing just felt different. And I'm a pretty, reserved person, but on the inside, the athlete in me, man, when I get around something real, man, my, heart starts pumping. And so I just saw this and I was like, wow, this is cool. And my point in sharing all this is you've got to believe in where you're going. When I was going through sports, I learned that principle that it didn't matter that high school coach didn't think I could get there. What mattered? What I believed. I love my parents, and it didn't matter necessarily what they believed about that journey. It mattered what I believed. Well, you're in business for yourself now. You are an independent business owner. You can be as big or as small as you want to be in your business, but it matters what you believe. Even your upline, man, you're going to hear about how much they poured into us. Mark and Meredith, man, they poured so much into us. They believed in us. They told us we could do it. They showed us how to do it. They encouraged us. They guided us. But at the end of the day, their belief could only take us so far. At some point, we had to own our belief. We had to own our vision. And so I would just encourage you this weekend. It's early. We're just getting going, man. We're just getting this thing fired up. But whether you're already feeling it or you're going to feel it at some point, man, you've got to bottle this up. And if you're already starting to feel like, man, I want to get a little bit more after this thing, allow yourself to. Because it does not matter even what your upline says. It matters what you say. It matters how you pursue your business. So with that, I'll pass it back.
Yeah, and like what Derek was saying, one thing about starting our entrepreneurial journey is that, in my opinion, being an entrepreneur helped prepare us for life. I think that is one of the most underrated skill sets of what we do is, learning to be an entrepreneur. It taught me as a young 20-something-year-old to stand on my own 2 feet. And like Derek said, that my opinion mattered just as much as anybody else that was around me. And that, at some point I had to start making my own decisions. I didn't need to wait for my roommates to approve what I was doing or, family members or coworkers. I was an adult, I could make my own decisions. And, being an entrepreneur taught me to be mentally tough. Sometimes you're going to deal with a little rejection. Sometimes not everyone's going to want to be a part of your team or purchase a product from you, and that's okay. That's the way entrepreneurship and business ownership work. And, I learned how to develop a little bit of faith, being an entrepreneur, because nothing happens overnight. Sometimes you got to have a little bit of patience and long-term mindset. And one of the number one things I think entrepreneurship and business ownership taught me was how to have a PMA, a positive mental attitude, especially in the world we live in today. I mean, you find any business owner, and I guarantee you they are the most optimistic people you will ever meet. Because you have to be optimistic to go into business for yourself. You have to bet on yourself. I think that's one of the most underlooked things. And, I will tell you, doing life and business with this team is way better than doing it by yourself. I think this team and this leadership really prepares you for life situations that you don't know are going to come up. Unfortunately, this past week, actually, we lost a guy on our team to cancer. And, I remember watching this kid get started, young 18-year-old kid, little cocky, coming out of boarding school. And he embraced all those things I just talked about, becoming an entrepreneur. And I watched him go from this young kid, to a little bit of an adult, in his early 20s, and just develop that PMA and that grit and that mental toughness. And then, he got handled this battle, But the thing is, he was prepared for it. And I watched him go through chemo and treatments for years, and nobody really knew what was going on except for his close circle of friends and family. And honestly, most of his close circle of friends were all people that he was in business with. He was sponsored in business by his best friend. His girlfriend was in business with him. He had developed a bunch of close relationships, and he wasn't the type of person that was looking for sympathy. Like, he wanted to win. He wanted his story to be a victorious story. And, his family didn't always understand. Like, man, this kid's like 21 years old, 22 years old, 23 years old. Like, how is he dealing with all of this and being so positive and being so mature and so full of faith and so full of joy? And he would just tell them, it's the people that I'm around. And even the people that he was around. And, as he was wrapping up his journey here with us, his brother had flown in from Ethiopia. He wasn't born here. And his brother had the opportunity to witness this. he had the opportunity to witness the people that he was around, this team. He had the opportunity to witness, the strength of his girlfriend, the strength of his best friend, and just the strength of him. Like, I've never seen someone go through something like that, at such a young age with, like I said, so much passion, and just such a great attitude, even when it didn't play out the way he wanted. And after his brother watched this, his sponsor was telling me that after he just lost his brother, they were walking out of the hospital, and his brother stopped and said to him right before they were about to walk into that parking lot, and he said, man, he goes, I don't know how he just did all of that and how he was strong for all of us during this. He goes, but all I got to say is I don't understand your business. I don't get what you guys do. He goes, but whatever that LTD team is doing, you need to stick with those people. He goes, because what I just witnessed was amazing. And I will tell you, that's what this team does for people. When life gets tough, they step in. They don't leave people on the bench. They will bring out the best in you. Because that's what they did for me. They took Derek and I as, just some 20-year-old punk college kids, and they taught us to be strong, and they taught us to stand on our own 2 feet, and they taught us what was important, and they prepared us for life challenges, that we didn't know we were going to have to deal with. And I'll leave you with this before I toss it back to Derek. Yes, we help people make money. Yes, we help people make products, but it's what this team of people is doing, especially in the world we live in now, is what matters. What we do matters. And if you get nothing out of this weekend other than a little bit of vision of how special this team is, about how special the leadership is, about how special the people are. Because I left this weekend, I still had questions about, different, bonus structures or developing customers. I still had lots of questions of things I needed to figure out and learn business-wise. But I left this weekend thinking, man, what this team does matters. They give people hope.
I love what Jill was saying there with that story. And what it reminded me of is my first weekend. I heard somebody say something to the effect of embrace the journey. And I remember saying, they said these great, like, flowery things. And I came from the athletic background, right? Very direct. And they said, embrace the journey. It's not about, the destination. It's about what you become along the way. And I was like, give me the destination, man. I'll take more income. I'll take a bigger team. I'll take more customers. I'll take, all the things I wanted in my business. I'm like, forget the journey, man. I just want the results. Anybody with me on that? Anybody ever have days like that? You're like, yeah, this journey thing's overrated. Just give me the results, right? I think that's, most of America today, right? And so I realized we're all going to feel like that, but there's probably a reason you're going through something. I remember hearing a story one time about a guy, and we're from Chicago, so we're bracing for winter. So I started thinking about snow and ice, and this kind of popped into my head. But they said they were watching this guy carve out one of those ice sculptures, right? And they take these blocks of ice, and have you guys ever seen this? And they like carve them into like swans, right? Or, a penguin, or sometimes you're not sure what it is, but, it looks cool, and I couldn't do it, so nice job. And they got, like, chainsaws and blowtorches, and so somebody finally asked one of the guys carving it out, right? Like, by the way, how do you get started doing that, right? What, does your mom find you in the backyard with a block of ice and a chainsaw like that? How do you get, like, where do you sign up for that class? There was never, like, a, rec team for that. But anyway, I remember they asked the guy, and they said, like, how do you create these unbelievable, like, sculptures, essentially, out of ice? And he said, well, I kind of picture the thing I'm trying to create, a swan or a penguin or whatever, and I just remove the things it doesn't need. And so that's kind of like our journey in business, right? You have a vision for your life. You have a vision of the person you want to become. You have a vision of the business you want to have. And so the journey is all about that. It's all about learning those skills. I mean, early on, Jill said it, I was nervous to create a customer. I remember Mark's like, hey, why don't you try some samples? I'm like, why would I sample if they don't buy? He's like, how are they going to buy if you don't sample? I'm like, touche. That's good mentorship right there. But, just simple things like that. It was so cheap. And then I remember being downtown one time and seeing him, like, there was this guy handing out cat food on the corner, right? They would hand out random things in Chicago on my way back from work. Sometimes it was like new soda flavor, but they were handing out cat food. And I remember walking by and the guy's like, here, take some cat food. I'm like, bro, I don't got a cat. He's like, I don't care, just take it. And I was like, that guy's making 10 bucks an hour. He don't care who takes his cat food home. But anyway, the point was they just wanted to get out samples. And I remember thinking, oh, wow, like that was one of those moments in the journey where I was like, oh man, like if big companies are sampling, I'm not saying go on a corner and hand out excess, okay? But I'm just saying that samples are gonna help you create customers. We had to start learning that stuff. I was nervous to approach people. I felt like I was getting something from people. I would recommend a shoe cleat all day long, and I could tell you the 74 reasons why it was the best cleat on the planet and make somebody else money, but because I made like a couple bucks selling it, I like got all nervous all of a sudden. And so we had to go through that journey. I wanted to be this, awesome business owner like I saw on stage, but I had to go through that process of removing some of those nervousness and those fears, and most fear is removed by taking action. Coming out of here, you're probably gonna be like, man, I wanna have some other people with me. I wanna develop a team. I wanna have some other people to run with me. Well, I remember talking to some people about the business that I thought for sure would do it. Anybody do this? Hey, upline, here's the 4 guys we need, and if we get these guys, we're gonna get everybody. Like, who is this guy? But we all do that, right? And then those 4 guys didn't get in. I was like, Mark, what are we gonna do? And he's like, remember that last advice? I got some more for you. And so we started building the list. And I had to get used to that. I had to get used to making that call and introducing the business, however you're doing it, however your upline's teaching it. But that was another, piece of that ice removed. And slowly but surely, we just kept going. We just embraced that journey. We embraced those 9 core steps that you're gonna hear about over and over. We embraced those 4 habits, and we just tried to do them. And here's what we became. We didn't have any business background when we get started, sports background, but we had that vision in mind, and we just knew no matter who challenged us, nobody can stop us, and we just tried to become that business owner we wanted to become a little bit each day, removing a little bit of ice, removing a little bit of a lack of skill set, removing a little bit of fear and doubt. And over time, you get more and more confident, because here's what happens. You have some breakthroughs. You have those successes. You have those people that want to start getting on your team. You have somebody get on your team that's as excited, if not more excited than you. And you start realizing, wow, this thing really matters. You start seeing people believe in their dream and their vision some more. Because you got that vision clear, they start getting a clearer vision. And man, this thing becomes super fun. It becomes a blast. And so we would encourage you this weekend, man, to really let this team in, really open your eyes. Man, I played on a lot of teams. We talked team until we got off the field. We talked team until they got to play on a better team, and then they took off on us. People often ask me, Derek, why'd you step away from pro sports? Personally, it's because I saw a real team I could run through life with. Yes, we were building the business. Yes, we were playing, yes, we were moving products. Yes, we were developing organizations. But man, I saw people that really wanted to do something big. Everybody talked about making a difference, but then those same people couldn't show up to QI. And then I saw people like Mark that would still show up. I saw people like Larry that would give us a call when maybe we were hurting a little bit and just give us that little pep talk we needed. And I just said, man, it's time to start taking some ownership of that. It's time to start taking some ownership of my dream. It's time to start becoming that swan. Maybe not the swan, but becoming the better business owner. I'm not really swan-like. You're beautiful and swan-like. I'm not really swan-like.
Never been called a swan, but okay, there's a first time for everything.
Sparkly swan, very sparkly swan.
Okay.
But anyway, and so we just...
Not really sure how to take that, but we'll just keep moving
forward. As a compliment.
Continue on.
As a compliment. And so here's what we would hope. We would hope that you hold on to what you see this weekend, because you're going to have those moments walking out of here this weekend where you have those kind of mirror moments. You're going to have those moments where you're like, man, I want this to work, but it's not working in my time frame. And listen, you got to keep that vision clear. You got to remember, just like that coach who told me you can't do it, it didn't matter what he thought, it mattered what I thought. Maybe you have somebody with you that doesn't stick around long term. It doesn't matter what they think, it matters what you think. Maybe you have some customers that buy every month. Maybe you have some customers that buy once. Whatever those things are that try to trip you up, you got to keep that vision in front of you. You got to keep what this team is doing in front of you, because you play a part in 100,000 Strong. So come join us, LTD, and have a great rest of your weekend.